What happens when the chase ends? Not because you're angry, not because you're trying to teach anyone a lesson, but because something deep inside of you shifts. You wake up one morning and realize she just isn't your priority anymore. Not out of spite, not because you're bitter, but because you finally see things for what they are. Most men think that if they stop caring, if they pull their energy back, she'll just shrug and walk away like it never meant anything. But that's rarely how it goes, because the moment your attention slips, she feels it. Not just notices it, feels it deeply. Women have a radar for emotional shifts, and when that signal starts to fade, it strikes a nerve, a primal nerve. Attention isn't just presence, it's value, it's affirmation. And when you take that away, you challenge the very foundation she's built her sense of importance on. Suddenly, she's no longer being reflected in your gaze. And for some women, that reflection was everything. The moment you step back, the curtain drops. That's when you find out who she really is. Does she scramble to get it back? Does she play games, send mixed signals, try to provoke a reaction? Or does she walk away like you were just a background character in her story? The difference between the two is everything, because a person's reaction to losing something they took for granted is their truth, unfiltered. You've seen it. Maybe you've lived it. You give, you invest, you pour your energy in, and then you stop. And suddenly she becomes someone else. Angry, desperate, cold. And you wonder, was any of it real? But here's the brutal reality. It was never about you. It was about what you gave her. The comfort, the validation, the feeling. Most people aren't in love with who you are. They're in love with how you make them feel. And when that feeling disappears, when your energy dries up, the mask falls off. If she valued you for you, she'll feel the loss. Quietly, respectfully. She might hurt, but she won't try to manipulate you back into orbit. But if she only ever saw you as a source, a provider of something she didn't want to lose, her panic will speak louder than any "I love you" ever did. Too many men see the panic and think it means something deep, that it's love. But ask yourself this: does a junkie love the dealer or the high? When she starts poking, testing, lashing out, it's not because she cherishes who you are. It's because she's losing the emotional hit you once gave her. And here's where men get it wrong. They interpret chaos as passion. They see emotional volatility and think, she must care so much. So they return, they get pulled back in, and just like that, the game restarts. You just taught her that instability works, that if she kicks up enough dust, she can pull you back into her storm. That's how you lose yourself. That's how you become the man who dances to someone else's emotional rhythm instead of moving to your own beat. But the man who doesn't react, who doesn't fight to prove his worth, he's the one who stands out. The man who walks away, calm, clear, whole. Not because he's trying to make a point, but because he's made peace with the truth. And here's that truth. Respect will always outlast love. Love can burn hot and fade fast. But respect, that stays. A woman who respected you will feel your absence in silence. She'll reflect. She'll regret. But the one who never did, she'll move on like you never existed. And in that moment, you won't need closure. You'll have clarity. So when you pull back, don't just listen to what she says. Watch. Her silence or her chaos, both are answers. And if it hurts to see the truth, maybe that's exactly what you needed. Men quietly surrender themselves piece by piece, barely noticing that they're fading until there's nothing left but a shell. They ignore the signs, justify the jabs, and tell themselves it's not that bad. They whisper, she didn't mean it like that, or I just need to be better, or it'll work out if I try harder. But deep down, they know, if you have to keep convincing yourself that it's not that bad, it's already worse than you admit. There's something ancient wired into every man's mind, a need to avoid conflict, to smooth things over, to keep peace at any cost. It's your brain's survival instinct whispering, don't challenge her, don't start a fight, just let it go. But what do you think that leads to? It doesn't lead to peace, it leads to erosion, a slow, quiet decay of your strength, your identity, your pride. You let one disrespectful comment pass, then another, And before long, you've given away your voice, your standards, your self-worth, traded them all for the comfort of not being alone. But is that comfort really? Or is it just fear wrapped in routine? Ask yourself this: what's more painful, being alone or being with someone who makes you feel like you're not enough, like your presence is a burden? Because those are the real choices. A man who swallows his voice, who keeps the peace by sacrificing himself, loses far more than he gains. He loses the respect of his woman. He loses his standing in the eyes of others. Most of all, he loses his own reflection. Because how can you respect yourself when you won't even stand up for yourself? And when a woman sees that, when she sees that you won't draw a line, something shifts in her. She starts to test. She pushes boundaries. She provokes. Not out of cruelty, not even consciously, because on a deep primal level, a woman cannot truly love a man she does not respect. And respect isn't built on flowers or favors or endless patience. It's built on strength. The strength to say, this is my line. This is who I am. This is what I won't allow. But here's where so many men go wrong. They think if they just love her more, if they prove themselves, if they sacrifice enough, she'll come around. That's not love. That's negotiation. And love that has to be earned by losing yourself isn't love at all. It's control. And if standing up for yourself means she leaves, then she was never really yours. What you had was not a partnership. It was a power imbalance dressed up as love, and you were always losing. You show people how to treat you by what you allow. If you flinch at confrontation, if you lower your standards to avoid rocking the boat, you're sending a message, not just to her, but to everyone. You're saying, I don't think I deserve better. And the world listens. So does she. The way out isn't loud. It's not angry. It doesn't come with threats or ultimatums. It's quiet, calm, unshakable. It's the ability to walk away, not to punish her, but to protect yourself. To say, I'd rather stand alone in my truth than live with someone who makes me doubt it. And when that truth settles deep into your bones, something changes. You stop being afraid. You stop feeling like you need to prove yourself. You become the kind of man who can lose anything, except his own soul. And that man, the one who won't trade his dignity for love, is the man women respect. Not because they have to, not because they're manipulated into it, but because they want to. Because strength, real strength, is magnetic. If you're in a relationship where you feel small, where every day feels like another test you're failing, understand this. You're not in love. You're in a battle to be seen, and the only way to win that battle is to stop playing it, to rise, to walk, to choose yourself over fear. Because in the end, the man who fears being alone less than he fears being diminished, that's the man who wins. Every time. Why do men stay in relationships where their emotions are twisted, their intentions questioned, and their confidence chipped away? It's not weakness. It's fear. Fear of confrontation, fear of rejection, fear of losing someone they believe they need to survive. But here's the truth. If keeping someone requires you to lose yourself, they were never yours to begin with. Self-respect isn't a negotiation. It's not something you barter with apologies and second chances. Once you start compromising your dignity, once you allow someone to reshape your reality and cast doubt on your own perceptions, you're not a partner anymore. You're a prisoner, and manipulation doesn't always scream. Sometimes it whispers, sometimes it shows up as silence, a withheld touch, a shifting of blame so subtle you question whether you were ever right at all. She crosses a line. You must have made her feel insecure. She disrespects you. You weren't attentive enough. She withdraws affection. You must have said something wrong. Do you see the pattern? It's not compromise. It's not growth. It's control. And it's slow, so slow that you start thinking it's your fault. That if you were just better, it wouldn't be like this. That maybe love is supposed to feel like always trying harder. But love doesn't feel like guilt. Real love doesn't make you question your worth. It lifts you. It sharpens you. It honors your boundaries, not punishes them. And the moment you realize that, the moment you stop accepting crumbs and start demanding truth, everything shifts. You stop being someone's emotional cushion. You stop being a hostage to guilt. You remember who you were before you started trying to be enough. Because the man who won't betray himself, the man who says, "This is who I am and I will not bend for anyone," he doesn't need to beg for love. He becomes the one who commands it. There's a big difference between understanding something and truly surrendering to it. The moment you find yourself apologizing for things you didn't do, excusing behavior you know is wrong, or explaining yourself over and over to someone who never truly listens, you're already trapped. And let me tell you, manipulators don't respect the people they control. They might relish the game, enjoy the power, but deep down, they despise weakness. And if you let yourself be controlled, if you let yourself be played, she will never see you the way you hope. She might use you, might even claim to love you, but respect, that's gone. Because how can anyone respect someone who doesn't even respect themselves? Some of you might be sitting there thinking, but I love her. I don't want to walk away. I get it. Love is powerful. But let me ask you this. What kind of love makes you sacrifice your dignity? What kind of love demands your silence, your submission, your constant self-doubt? That's not love. That's dependency. That's emotional slavery. And if that's what you're in, walking away isn't just an option, it's the only option. And yes, I know it's terrifying. The idea of being alone, of starting over, feels like a nightmare. But think about it. What's the real nightmare here? Being alone for a while, or staying in a relationship where, little by little, you're being broken down, where your confidence fades and one day you wake up, not even knowing who you are anymore? That's the real cost of tolerating manipulation. It destroys you from the inside out. Here's the truth. The moment you stop tolerating it, the moment you stand up for yourself, you change everything. You don't just walk away from the person who's manipulating you. You walk away from the version of yourself that allowed it. That's liberation. That's when you take your power back. That's when you become the man who will never let himself be diminished again. Because in the end, a man who refuses to be manipulated, who refuses to be broken down, is a man who commands respect. And that kind of man, he never has to beg for love. Real love, the kind of love that's worth having, is only ever given to the man who knows he doesn't need it to survive. Why do men stay in relationships where they're not respected? Why do they tolerate dishonesty, emotional neglect, and disrespect? It's a heartbreaking question, and often the answer is self-betrayal. The unwillingness to face the hard truths, the willingness to trade integrity for temporary comfort. But listen closely. If you stay where you're disrespected, you're telling the world you don't value yourself. And that's a catastrophic mistake. Respect is not something you beg for. It's not something you negotiate. Respect is something you command. And you don't command it through arrogance or force. You command it through unwavering self-respect. You command it by refusing to tolerate what you know is beneath you. The moment you accept disrespect, when you rationalize it, excuse it, or look the other way, you've already lost. And here's the deeper truth. Disrespect doesn't start with open contempt. It starts small, little tests, subtle dismissals, sarcastic jabs. Moments where you're made to feel foolish for asserting yourself. And if you let those moments slide, they only get worse. They turn into full-blown disregard, betrayal. Because if someone doesn't respect you from the start, they won't respect you later. And you might think, well, maybe I can fix this. Maybe I can be more patient, more understanding. Maybe if I prove my worth, she'll respect me more. Wrong. Respect is never earned through submission. It's never earned by bending over backward, proving you're worthy of it. The moment you make your dignity depend on someone else's approval, you've already given it up. So what do? You set boundaries. And make no mistake, a boundary is not a request. It's not a suggestion. It's a hard line. And when it's crossed, there are consequences. You don't debate it. You don't justify it. You enforce it. Because if you don't enforce it, you didn't have a boundary to begin with. You had a weak preference. And preferences don't command respect. Now you might think, if I set boundaries, I might lose her. And maybe you will. But if respecting yourself costs you that relationship, then that relationship was never worth keeping. Because the alternative, the slow erosion of your self-worth, that's a far greater price to pay. Here's the thing about respect. It's a mirror. If you demand and enforce it, you'll attract people who respect themselves, who value integrity, who know what it means to stand firm. But if you allow disrespect, you invite more of it. You attract people who take advantage of you, who push limits, who see you as a doormat. And this doesn't just affect your romantic relationships, it affects your entire life. A man who tolerates disrespect in one area will tolerate it in others. At work, with his friends, in society. And before he knows it, his whole world is built on compromise, on quietly swallowing his frustration, on putting himself last, on being the man who never stands up because standing up feels too risky. But let me tell you something. The real risk is staying silent. The real risk is wasting years in a relationship where you're not valued. The real risk is waking up one day and realizing you've spent your life appeasing someone who never saw your worth. So you have a choice. You can keep making excuses, hoping things will change while you slowly lose yourself. Or you can draw a line right now. You can decide once and for all that you won't tolerate what diminishes you. Because in the end, the man who refuses to tolerate disrespect, the man who walks away when necessary, is the man who commands respect. And that kind of man, he never has to beg for love. Because real love, the kind of love that matters, is only ever given to the man who knows he doesn't need it to survive.